The archivist sits behind his massive oak desk in the semi-darkness of a vast classical archive. His silver-gray hair catches the dim light of a single green banker's lamp. He looks up coldly from a leather-bound volume. In 1946, in Cincinnati, Ohio, the executives of Procter and Gamble launched a product called Tide. What nobody knew at the time was global aquatic ecosystems would face total collapse. This cheap box of dry white granules launched a terrifying cascade of global events. It reshaped modern psychology and weaponized human shame. The corporation colonized human vision itself. They sold an expensive optical illusion of cleanliness for billions in profit. This is a story about corporate power, bodily control, and the global manipulation of our senses. Humanity spent thousands of years trapped in a visceral nightmare of domestic labor. For centuries, washing clothes was a brutal task. It was physically dangerous. It broke the human body. Women spent their entire lives kneeling beside freezing riverbanks. They scrubbed coarse fabrics against jagged rocks. The winter water cracked their skin. Their hands bled continuously. They used a crude mixture of wood ash lye and rendered animal fat. This mixture was highly caustic. It slowly ate away the flesh on their fingers. Deep chemical ulcers formed on their arms. The pain was constant and agonizing. The physical toll of cleanliness was immense. Every household was a small chemical warfare zone. The tools were primitive. The results were devastating to human health. The simple act of cleaning a shirt required hours of agonizing torment. The skin on a washerwoman's hands became thick and calloused. The joints swelled with early arthritis. The constant exposure to damp cold induced chronic respiratory illnesses. Many died young from infected wounds caused by the caustic lye. The domestic sphere was defined by this unending physical trauma. In the grand scale of history, cleanliness was a bloody battleground. People wore the same heavy wool garments for months. The fabrics accumulated thick layers of sweat, dead skin, and grease. Fleas and lice infested every seam. To combat this filth, ancient civilizations resorted to desperate measures. In the public squares of ancient Rome, large stone vats stood on every street corner. These vats were placed there to collect human urine from passersby. And no, I'm not making that up. The government collected this liquid for industrial use. Centralized laundry facilities called fullonicae bought the stale urine in massive quantities. The state even taxed the collection of this bodily waste. Emperor Vespasian famously defended the tax by declaring that money does not smell. The trade was highly lucrative. The entire Roman economy relied on this bizarre recycling system. The collection of human waste was a critical municipal infrastructure project. The chemical reality of this process was stomach-churning. Stale urine contains high amounts of natural urea. Over time, urea breaks down into ammonia. Ammonia acts as a powerful degreasing agent. Roman slaves spent their entire days standing inside these deep stone vats. They were surrounded by gallons of fermenting human waste. They trampled the dirty clothes with their bare feet for hours. The caustic liquid burned their legs. The fumes choked their lungs. The air inside these fullonicae was thick with the stench of decaying nitrogen. After hours of stomping, the clothes were rinsed in stagnant water. The fabrics retained a foul odor of rancid fat and sour ammonia. The cloth quickly degraded into a stiff, gray, rotting mass. The slaves suffered from severe skin conditions. Their feet developed deep fungal infections. The constant ammonia fumes blinded their eyes over time. The Roman elite wore pristine white togas. Those togas were washed in the sweat and misery of dying slaves. The structural inequality of the ancient world was mirrored in the very fibers of their garments. Medieval Europe inherited equally grim methods. People relied on urine and rancid animal fat soaps. The manufacturing of these soaps was a filthy industry. Tanners and soap boilers boiled the carcasses of diseased cattle. They extracted the putrid tallow in open cauldrons. The resulting soap smelled like rotting flesh. When mixed with hard water, it left a greasy film on the garments. Clothes were never truly clean. They were merely coated in a new layer of animal lipids. This grease attracted more dirt. It provided a perfect breeding ground for deadly bacteria. Typhus and plague swept through crowded medieval cities. The biological cost of primitive laundry was millions of human lives. People preferred to cover their body odors with heavy perfumes. They hid their dirty garments under elaborate outer robes. Cleanliness was an unattainable luxury. The wealthy used expensive linens to mask the filth underneath. The poor simply rotted in their own clothes. The stench of a medieval market was overpowering. It was a combination of open sewers and unwashed human bodies. The Industrial Revolution altered the landscape, but not the agony. In the 19th century, urban centers swelled with factory workers. The demand for soap skyrocketed. Factories began producing cheap bar soap using palm oil and coconut oil. These tropical oils were imported from colonized territories. The British Empire extracted these resources through forced labor. The human cost of cleanliness shifted from European peasants to colonial slaves. Still, the domestic reality remained grueling. The invention of the washboard provided little relief. Women still spent their Saturdays lifting heavy iron cauldrons of boiling water. They rubbed their knuckles raw against ridged metal plates. The steam filled their small tenements. The moisture triggered outbreaks of mold on the walls. The household air became toxic. Tuberculosis spread rapidly in these damp environments. The quest for clean clothes remained a primary source of physical exhaustion. The working class carried the physical markers of this labor on their distorted spines. The modern world shattered this ancient reality through the crucible of total war. In 1916, the German Empire faced complete economic strangulation. The British Royal Navy enforced a strict maritime blockade. No cargo ships could reach German ports. The nation ran out of natural oils and fats. The military high command confiscated every ounce of available fat. They needed it to produce nitroglycerin for artillery shells. They needed it to feed frontline soldiers. The civilian population had nothing left for basic hygiene. Regular soap manufacturing ceased entirely. Dirt and parasites overran the trenches. Disease threatened to destroy the German army from within. The situation was critical. The government desperately needed a scientific miracle to survive. Without soap, the civilian front would collapse from epidemics. The German High Command prioritized chemical research over all else. They converted laboratory spaces into military research facilities. In a dark laboratory, a brilliant chemist faced a desperate challenge. His name was Fritz Günther. He worked for the chemical conglomerate BASF. The government demanded a synthetic alternative to natural soap. Günther turned his attention to the waste products of heavy industry. He experimented with coal tar. This black, viscous byproduct of coal production was abundant. Günther subjected the coal tar to intense chemical synthesis. He bonded alkyl groups with naphthalene. Through weeks of failure and isolation, he labored alone. He eventually created the world's first synthetic surfactant. It was a chemical compound born from fossil fuels. It bypassed nature entirely. The substance could foam in cold water, could clean clothes without using a single gram of agricultural fat. It was a triumph of synthetic organic chemistry. The invention altered the trajectory of modern industrial production forever. This new substance could emulsify dirt without using a single drop of animal fat. It lowered the surface tension of water. It allowed moisture to penetrate deep into fabric fibers. Günther's creation saved millions from the horrors of typhus. It kept the German war machine functioning. Yet, the inventor received no grand rewards. The war ended in catastrophic defeat for his nation. Hyperinflation wiped out his savings. The global economic chaos isolated him. He watched foreign corporations exploit his research. Fritz Günther died in relative obscurity. His profound contribution to human chemistry was buried in dusty patent archives. He became another forgotten cog in the industrial machine. His patents were seized as war reparations by the victorious Allied powers. The corporate entities of the West quietly absorbed his decades of intense intellectual labor. During the interwar period, global chemical cartels began to form. The German corporate giant IG Farben controlled the patents for synthetic surfactants. They refined the chemical structures. They created more efficient variants called alkylbenzene sulfonates. These chemicals were derived from petroleum. They were incredibly cheap to manufacture. American corporate executives watched these developments with intense greed. Representatives from Procter and Gamble traveled to Germany. They signed secret cross-licensing agreements. They wanted to dominate the domestic market in the United States. They realized that synthetic detergents could completely replace traditional soap flakes. The profit margins would be astronomical. Traditional soap required expensive agricultural inputs. Synthetic detergent required only cheap oil byproducts. The transition promised to liberate corporations from the unpredictability of agricultural harvests. The outbreak of the Second World War accelerated the technology once again. The military needed synthetic detergents to wash equipment in salty ocean water. After the war, Procter and Gamble unleashed this military-grade technology onto civilian consumers. In 1946, they perfected the formulation of Tide. The development had been cloaked in absolute secrecy. It was known inside the company as Project X. The new product possessed immense cleaning power. It stripped away grease with unprecedented efficiency. However, the corporate executives encountered a severe technical crisis. The synthetic surfactants were too aggressive. They did not just remove dirt. They stripped the natural oils from the textile fibers. The process altered the physics of light reflection. It made white cotton garments look dull and yellowish. The clothes looked worn out after a single wash. Consumers would reject a product that ruined their clothes. The multi-million-dollar investment faced complete ruin. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything. Corporate chemists chose deception over engineering. They refused to change the harsh formula. Instead, they decided to manipulate human perception. They introduced a secret additive into the detergent mixture. This additive belonged to a class of chemicals called stilbene derivatives. These are synthetic organic compounds. The archivist appears on screen once again. He sits behind his massive oak desk, surrounded by towering bookshelves. The green banker's lamp illuminates his cold, calm features. He looks directly into the lens. He adjusts his muted tie with a slow, deliberate movement. He speaks with a tone of cynical irony. Capitalist enterprises never solve problems when they can sell an illusion. They realized it was cheaper to fool your eyes than to protect your clothing. If you appreciate these dark exposures of hidden history, subscribe to the channel right now. Join our archive. Let us return to the corporate boardroom where the great optical heist was finalized. The chemical solution was a stroke of marketing genius. They called these additives optical brighteners. These chemicals do not wash away with the dirt. They are designed to do the exact opposite. They bind permanently to the cellulose fibers of the fabric. They survive multiple rinse cycles. They accumulate in the cloth over time. The physics behind this process is fascinating. The stilbene molecules absorb invisible ultraviolet light from the sun. They alter the wavelength of the radiation. They re-emit this energy as visible light in the blue spectrum. This blue tint counteracts the natural yellowing of the fabric. It tricks the human brain. The mind interprets the extra blue light as an intense, supernatural whiteness. It is a visual trick. The garment is not cleaner. It is simply glowing. The consumer is left completely blind to the residual chemical film covering their skin. The corporation weaponized this optical trickery through massive advertising campaigns. They targeted the psychological vulnerabilities of post-war housewives. Television commercials filled the airwaves. Magazine advertisements showed immaculate families. The messaging was aggressive and unforgiving. They created a direct link between a woman's moral worth and the brightness of her laundry. If a mother's sheets showed a natural cream tint, she was labeled a failure. She was publicly shamed as dirty and negligent. The strategy worked flawlessly. Millions of women experienced intense anxiety. They rushed to buy the boxes of Tide. They desperately chased a standard of purity that did not exist. The corporate balance sheets swelled with unprecedented profits. The illusion became the new global reality. The entire social fabric was reorganized around the cult of the glowing white shirt. The domestic standard was established by corporate decree. The success of Tide triggered a massive corporate arms race. Competitors like Colgate-Palmolive and Lever Brothers rushed to develop their own formulations. Every brand added higher concentrations of optical brighteners. They introduced new chemical additives called builders. The most common builders were complex sodium phosphates. These compounds were added to soften hard water. They prevented dirt particles from resettling on the clothes during the wash cycle. The production of phosphates exploded globally. Chemical mining operations expanded across North America and North Africa. Industrial landscapes were permanently scarred to extract these minerals. The corporate machine consumed vast amounts of energy to process the raw materials. The global economy became deeply dependent on the continuous consumption of synthetic laundry products. The market was flooded with competitive alternatives that all relied on the same fundamental deception. This economic shift coincided with the rapid expansion of American suburbs. Millions of identical suburban homes were constructed across the landscape. Each house was equipped with a dedicated laundry room. The automated washing machine became a mandatory appliance. The consumption of electricity and clean water skyrocketed. The daily routines of ordinary citizens were altered. Laundry was no longer a weekly chore. It became a continuous daily operation. The corporate marketing departments encouraged this behavior. They told consumers to wash garments after a single wear. They created the concept of artificial freshness. The smell of clean clothes was no longer the absence of odor. It became the presence of a heavy synthetic perfume. Humanity was trained to fear its own natural scent. The industry manufactured a new psychological need for constant chemical cleanliness. This mass psychological manipulation reshaped global trade and municipal infrastructure. Cities worldwide had to redesign their sewage systems. Traditional water treatment plants could not filter out these new synthetic chemicals. The macroeconomic scale of the industry grew exponentially. The demand for raw chemical inputs triggered a massive boom in industrial mining. Corporations extracted billions of tons of phosphate rock from fragile ecosystems. They stuffed the detergent formulas with these mineral builders. The phosphates prevented mineral interference in hard water. They maximized the efficiency of the surfactants. But the environmental cost was catastrophic. The corporate executives ignored the warnings of their own environmental scientists. They prioritized short-term profits over ecological stability. The legal departments compiled defense strategies to counter potential environmental lawsuits. Think about that for a second. Whole aquatic ecosystems died for brighter sheets. Every single day, millions of households discharged tons of phosphate-laden water into the global drainage system. The chemicals bypassed municipal filters easily. They flowed directly into major river systems. They accumulated in massive freshwater lakes. The phosphates acted as a hyperpotent fertilizer. They triggered an explosion of toxic cyanobacteria. These are commonly known as blue-green algae. The algae multiplied at an unnatural, terrifying speed. They formed thick blankets of green sludge across the water surfaces. The scale of the biological growth was unprecedented. It resembled a malignant tumor spreading across the watery veins of the continents. The natural balance of aquatic environments was completely obliterated. The biological consequence was an environmental apocalypse. The dense layer of algae blocked all sunlight from reaching the aquatic plants below. The underwater vegetation rotted and died. The decomposition process consumed all the dissolved oxygen in the water. The rivers and lakes became hypoxic dead zones. Suffocating fish washed ashore by the millions. Entire populations of trout, perch, and waterfowl vanished. The sweet, clear waters of ancient lakes turned into stagnant pools of toxic slime. The poison leached into underground aquifers. It contaminated the drinking water supplies of major metropolitan areas. In the 1960s, Lake Erie was declared biologically dead. Its surface was covered in a foul-smelling green crust. The destruction was visible from space. A massive freshwater ocean had been choked to death by the domestic habits of a consumer society. The The public outcry was intense. Citizens demanded immediate government intervention. However, the chemical corporations fought back with immense political influence. They hired powerful lobbyists to block environmental regulations. They funded biased scientific studies to cast doubt on the connection between phosphates and algae blooms. They blamed municipal sewage systems instead of their own products. For decades, they successfully delayed legislative action. They continued to profit from the destruction of public resources. When local governments attempted to ban phosphates, corporations threatened to withdraw their factories. They used economic blackmail to maintain their market dominance. The survival of corporate profits was prioritized over the survival of natural ecosystems. The regulatory framework of modern states was systematically compromised by corporate cash. The industry adapted to environmental regulations with calculated indifference. When governments finally enacted strict bans on phosphates, corporations merely substituted other complex chemicals. They introduced zeolites and polycarboxylates. These alternatives were less damaging to fish, but their long-term environmental impacts remained unknown. The corporate marketing departments quickly launched a new strategy. They invented the concept of greenwashing. They placed images of green leaves and clean water on their plastic packaging. They claimed their products were now eco-friendly. It was another layer of deception. The fundamental nature of the product had not changed. It remained a toxic cocktail of synthetic surfactants and optical brighteners. The corporate machine merely adjusted its public relations strategy to protect its revenue streams. The consumers accepted the new marketing language without questioning the underlying chemistry. The evolution of the product continued into the late 20th century. Corporations introduced liquid detergents to replace dry powders. This shift allowed them to sell water at a premium price. The formulations became more complex. They added synthetic enzymes derived from genetically modified bacteria. These enzymes were designed to break down specific organic stains like blood and grass. However, the enzymes also caused severe skin irritation and allergic reactions in many consumers. The industry responded by creating specialized products for sensitive skin. They monetized the health problems caused by their own original formulas. Every crisis was transformed into a new market opportunity. The consumer was trapped in a continuous cycle of purchasing chemical solutions for chemically induced problems. The market expanded by fragmenting the consumer base into highly specific demographic niches. Today, in 2026, the deception has reached its peak. We drop small, colorful plastic pods into automated washing machines. We inhale a sharp, overwhelming odor of artificial alpine freshness. We marvel at the pristine appearance of our garments. We believe we are living in the cleanest era of human history, yet our eyes are still being systematically deceived. The modern clothing industry relies heavily on synthetic polyester. These plastic fibers absorb optical brighteners even more intensely than cotton. The garments we wear are coated in a permanent chemical film. We walk around wrapped in a glowing illusion. The liquid capsules are encased in polyvinyl alcohol. This synthetic polymer dissolves in water but does not truly disappear. It enters the aquatic environment as liquefied plastic. The hidden infrastructure of our cleanliness continues to pollute the planet in invisible ways. The consequences of this modern chemical cocktail are far-reaching. The liquefied plastics and optical brighteners accumulate in the marine food chain. Microscopic organisms consume the chemical residues. Small fish eat the organisms. Large predators consume the small fish. Eventually, these synthetic compounds return to our own dinner plates. The cycle of deception is complete. We started by trying to remove dirt from our clothes. We ended by contaminating the entire global biosphere. The optical brighteners continue to glow silently inside the tissues of marine life. They serve as a permanent radioactive marker of human vanity. The corporate architects of this system continue to reap billions in profits. They have successfully convinced humanity that an optical trick is equivalent to true cleanliness. The global food supply is intimately bound to the residue of our laundry habits. The history of laundry detergent is a testament to the power of corporate manipulation. It shows how easily human desires can be hijacked for profit. A genuine human need for hygiene was transformed into a destructive global industry. The corporations did not just invent a product. They invented a new way of seeing the world. They trained us to value an artificial aesthetic over ecological reality. We ignore the destruction of our rivers because our shirts look bright. We ignore the chemical irritation on our skin because our sheets smell like synthetic flowers. The victory of the marketing executives is absolute. They have colonized our minds, our bodies, and our natural world. We remain willing participants in this grand optical illusion. Every wash cycle reinforces our dependence on this corporate framework. The archivist appears on screen a final time. He slowly closes the massive leather folio. He looks up. The green light fades. The year 1946 never truly ended. Human systems evolve, but our submission to illusion remains identical. Subscribe if you were surprised. Click the video on your screen to explore deeper.